Today I'm going to be talking about codependency and emotional enmeshment, and I'd like to start off by giving an example. So I was talking with a client about this, and she was having this realization that her husband lives in fear, and as a result of her husband living in fear, he has learned that to manage this internal subconscious fear that governs and operates his very existence, that in order to cope with that, he has learned how to control his outer environment. So if he controls his family member, if he controls outwardly different things that are happening in his life, then the perception is that he's safe. And so this client of mine has been in this habit and pattern and dynamic of people pleasing, of lowering her voice, of not speaking her truth, and actually getting extremely discombobulated, if you will, for a lack of a better word, very dysregulated in her nervous system when she attempts to speak, attempts to talk. And what we identified and uncovered in our conversation was that she too lives in fear. And her fear comes from feeling unsafe when those around her are not okay, when they are not satisfied, or when they are dysregulated. So as a result of her mitigating and responding to this subconscious fear and anxiety, she has learned how to shrink, which is the opposite of controlling. So actually it is a form of control. She has learned how to control the response of others by shrinking, by not stepping out into her full truth or her autonomy, and actually losing her ability to verbalize and voice her opinion or what's true for her. And so this is when I introduced to her the concept of codependency and emotional enmeshment. And what that means is when you have learned codependency and emotional enmeshment as a way, it's a response to trauma, and it's a survival response. It's not a response in life that develops your personality to be able to thrive and live in your wholeness. It's actually a shrunken state, if you will. It's a way that we live subconsciously, and most of the time we don't even realize this. And what it means is so when you are a codependent person, or you're emotionally enmeshed with another person, basically what that looks like is that if subconsciously, what your subconscious believes and says is that when everything and everybody else around me is okay, then I'll be okay. And in order for everything and everybody around me to be okay, I have to listen to them. I have to do what they want. I have to submit. It's not worth using my voice, because if they're not okay, then I'm not okay. And so it was like this light bulb finally went off. And when we start growing out, when we start evolving and transforming out of not living in fear anymore, we walk in to this higher version of ourselves that is okay with others not being okay. It is a stance where we break up with fear, where we become aware of the fear of what will happen when someone is displeased with us. And you see, here's the thing, that this happens to those of us who are highly sensitive individuals. And what that means is that we perceive on a greater and deeper level than most people feel. And it's the way that we're wired and we come into the world, I believe, but it also is a learned sensitivity through traumatic childhood experiences. And so when you live in an unstable and uncertain childhood, I know that for me, this is very relevant as well. We tend to become hyper aware and hyper obsessed with how other people are feeling, what they're thinking, and their disposition. And then we mistake that their disposition is going to dictate how we operate, how we feel. And so security and safety is outsourced to the external environment around us. And the journey of transformation and healing and peace, experiencing peace that surpasses all understanding, is the journey of coming home to ourselves and allowing this system, our nervous system, to regulate. It's learning how to come back into our body so that we feel safe in our body and that we can be present with someone else's fear without bowing down to it. And change starts when we can face our own fear, see it, acknowledge it, and no longer bow down to it. And it's this walk, it's this powerful walk of walking out of codependency and emotional enmeshment that first comes with this awareness. Secondly, we realize this pattern that we're in, and then we have to go on the journey of walking out this pattern. And it requires a transformation of the individual, like in every way, sense, or form. And it's almost, I wouldn't say almost, I truly believe that it becomes an addiction, because an addiction is anything that our nervous system relies on in order to cope with something that feels too big, too heavy, and we don't know what to do with it. So if we have become in an addicted pattern of shrinking, of tuning in to other people's needs or to their disapproval or to their discomfort, and making it mean that we cannot be comfortable, we cannot be safe unless the whole environment around us is safe, that actually becomes like a repetitive addiction pattern that we have to break out of. And so what it requires is coming home to ourselves. You see, because in this particular circumstance, my client is hyper fixated on her husband understanding why she's making the decisions that she's making, because he does not approve of the decisions. He's been in a pattern of dictating to her disapproval and then her listening and making her choices according to what he approves of or what he doesn't approve of. And right now she's walking on a journey of following her intuition and embarking on this journey of deeper knowing and healing mind, body, and spirit. And that's causing her to want to make decisions for herself. And so, of course, this is creating friction, because this goes against the decades of the dynamic of their relationship. And so she's shifting out of being hyper fixated on needing him to understand her and needing him to approve of her, to her being okay and able to witness his disapproval and his discomfort, which really is his fear, because he has felt this inner fear, and because of the fear, it causes him to want to control her, because if he can be in control of her, then she'll be safe, and then he can be safe. And so she's going to have to be able to disconnect from his emotional needs and issues and what he's become dependent on in order to manage and cope with this internal fear, subconscious fear that drives him. And she's stepping into being able to sit with her fear, her fear her fear of, if everyone around me is not okay, then I'm not okay. And that anxiety that comes up with wanting to conform and fit in the box and do what others, be who others need her to be, and do what others need her to do, so that they'll be okay, so then she can finally be okay. And so she's learning how to rewrite this narrative and rewrite this script and find her worth, find her value, and to do so while holding a loving, compassionate space for the ones that this is going to affect. Because it's not that we're learning how to use our voice so that we can walk away or that we can be boastful or prideful. It's just really valuing integrity. Integrity to walk in our own authenticity and our own voice and do really what's true for us instead of having this internal wrestling and dialogue and blame and resentment that somebody else doesn't understand us, or that they won't approve. Like we want them to get it. We need them to understand it. But the truth is that they can't understand it because they're not walking in our shoes. And so the true freedom is to walk in this authenticity of not needing anyone else to do or become anything in order for us to walk in our authenticity and truth. And it only takes one out of two to begin blazing the trail for the other to follow. But somebody's going to have to face their fear and look at it. And on another video, I'll share my own personal testimony with this, because the only reason I was able to understand it and recognize it from a client is because I literally walked through this. My whole life through like around 36 was completely entrenched in emotional enmeshment and codependency. And I had these exact same feelings, these exact same tendencies. And so stay tuned, and I'll share that with you another day.